I hope this is live. I hope it went live at the right time. I can still see things turning and all the rest. Anyways, it's Nathan Graham, that house guy, and today is your election day version of this video. So this is a video I've been putting off, and I don't really know why. I guess I don't really want to be that person that tries to sway one way or another, in a sense, trying to get you to go one way or another on how to vote. I definitely have my opinions and what I think is best for Canada, but that I don't think is my job, is here to try to convince you one way or another. But here is what my job is to share with you what the plans are. So I wanted to do today's video. It might be a tad bit longer, but I wanted to do today's video and share with you the actual plans. Now, I completely forgot I went live on this. So yeah, so I'm doing this off the cusp, but I do all my videos that way anyways. Okay. So what I have done, let me start off this way, and I'm going to explain to you what I have done, and then we're going to quickly talk about it. We'll start here. This here is the conservative platform, right? So this is basically just everything that they're putting through. What I've also have up with me is the Liberal platform as well. Now, these are quite lengthy documents. The conservative one is 30 pages. The Liberal one is 67 pages. That's quite a bit. And all I really wanted to do was kind of get to what is going to be the core differences between the two platforms. So regardless of what happens today, you kind of know where you're going to stand in the potential housing world. So I have taken these PDFs. I am going to attach this to an email. So if you're not on my email list, message me if you want to be, but I'm going to attach this to an email list with a link to both of these platforms, as well as what's called a custom GPT. Now, if you're not wanting to read through 60 pages of mind-numbing documents, then read through another 30 pages of mind-numbing documents, this GPT, I've uploaded these two PDFs, and it is the sole source of information for this AI. So you can ask this AI any questions about the platforms. And this is a great way to cut through misinformation, cut through FUD, as we call it, fear, uncertainty, and doubt that people are spreading. And this just tells you exactly what they're saying from that point of view. So let's go into it. I've put into also GPT. I'm gonna pull this up so you guys can see everything that I do. Share the screen. Okay, so what I did here is I just basically meant to ask, can you please explain the Liberal platform on housing through this? And then I had a link to the upload. And I did this twice, and you're going to see kind of the differences of why. But anyways, so here's the Liberal plan. They want to double housing starts on supply and creation, build new Canadian homes. The prefabricated housing investment, I want to touch on that in a second, because I think there's a lot of FUD around that, and I think it's actually a good idea. And an affordable housing construction investment of $10 billion. Okay, so one of the things to kind of start off with, remember that housing is on a provincial level and municipal is not really on a federal level. So when you see a lot of federal promises, they're basically saying, we're going to give you and incentivize you to go build more homes. At the end of the day, though, it's up to the provinces to be able to go do that. So if you remember, not too terribly long ago, we had a big scandal involving Doug Ford in our conservative government about opening up Crown land, and then he gave it all the land to his buddies to develop. That's a provincial matter. So one thing to quickly separate is when you're looking at these promises back and forth. It has very little to do on a federal level. Like, they are not physically going out there to build the homes. Now, this prefabricated housing investment and opening up Crown land, hopefully to do it to a public developer, I think is a fantastic idea. I personally don't care who owns what companies get what contracts. All I care about is that we get more affordable housing for the people of Canada. And that is the biggest issue. We need a lot of homes to do that. Sorry, this is morning, so I'm still drinking my coffee. Okay, so second of all, this affordable housing construction. Now, this was attempted, I don't know if it was on a federal level or on a provincial level, but this was attempted a while ago, where it was incentivized for builders to build townhouses, semis, and all the rest. And these are typically your more affordable style homes with more affordable style homes. So what the investors did is they got like I want to say it was GST breaks on it. They got some sort of break on it. So they built these wonderful townhomes and semis, and they built like the $1 million version of them. So I really hope that whatever party promises affordable housing construction, that they have some sort of way of actually saying it is affordable. Okay, on to affordable measures. GST eliminated for first-time homebuyers on new build. I'm right now centered in Ontario, and to be honest, um, this is not really going to impact us a whole lot because there's not exactly a lot of first-time homebuyers lining up outside of homes. And we're going to see this on both. So, kind of also back up, you are exempt on GST when buying a resale home, so you don't pay GST or HST on those ones. And the first-time homebuyer incentive program expanded. We have no idea what that means, so that's just fancy words. GST removal. So this is a rental housing initiative, removing the GST and new development. Again, I think this is a fantastic idea. I think that incentivizing buyers to build or builders or people to retrofit their homes for semis, for duplexes, for triplexes, whatever case may be. This is one great way of taking our existing housing and adding more homes for people to live in, and also hopes that it'll bring down the rental market because we have a lot more supply. At the end of the day, this is a supply and demand issue. So I do like that one. Conversion on existing buildings. Again, this is the same idea. We see this a lot in Oshawa. They have a really good program to convert existing buildings into duplex. So again, they're allocating $4 billion to convert that. Now, again, what I would like to say, though, is, again, this is provincially managed. It's not federally managed a lot of the time. So they'll have this slush fund that goes towards it and to incentivize the provinces. I don't know exactly how they're going to incentivize builders on a $4 billion plan with circumventing the provinces. So I don't know if this is true or just fancy words. I hate to say it, in previous housing promises, it has just been fancy words. And then, of course, the workforce development. Man, this has been in every platform, and this just has to go. Tradespeople, if there are any tradespeople listening to this, you guys are legitimately the best. Please keep doing what you're doing. Get more people involved in the trades. If you have someone young who's up and coming looking to get into the trades, it's a fantastic time to get into trades. It pays well. Your future's taken care of, and you're making a real impact on day-to-day Canadians. So let's go tradespeople. Okay, so there's a quick rundown of the housing platform. I'm sure I probably missed some stuff, but that's ChatGPT for you. So now I did the same thing. This is the conservative platform that I told you about. I did the same thing. I plugged it into ChatGPT, and I basically said, just give me the point notes and easy to understand conversations. And as if you look back on this video, you can see my whole conversation. Okay, so point 4 summary. The goal is to build 2.3 million homes over the next 5 years. I love how ChatGPT, this is like, honestly, conservatives got to stop doing this. Stop giving these little jabs, man. Just say your piece. So anyways, to build on $2.3 million for homes in the next 5 years. I don't know how realistic either one of those numbers are. I think the reality is, and I want to go back to the Liberal platform about these prefab homes. Where was it here? Prefabricated housing investment. I think this is how you get it done. I don't understand why it costs $25 billion, but this is how you get it done. We need to build basically a new form or style of house, the small houses that become an introductory, almost like a condo on land. And I think that can work. There's ways around it. Axe the GST on all new homes under $1.3 million. Again, this is not really here to incentivize first-time home buyers. First-time homebuyers are typically in Ontario anyways, not lining up side a new home development. This will help, though, with people wanting to make that step up. And both platforms are talking about cutting the GST on new homes under, I think Liberals was under $1 million. This is 1.3. Incentivize cities to cut development charges. Federal government will reimburse 50% of the development charges reduction up to $50,000. So again, this is what I like about this statement is the federal government will be working with the municipalities to be able to cut a lot of the red tape. I think I heard a stat that red tape is about 30% of the cost of a house, which is insane. And I'll tell you a real life story around that in a minute. But that's what they're doing to incentivize it. And then infrastructure funding the actual housing results. So cities that approve 15% plus more new home buildings get more money. Cities that block and delay lose funding. Sell off 15. Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. So this is a good idea. I like this idea. Now, these next two ideas I think are fantastic. I've spoken to this on both sides. I think they're good. So first of all, sell off 15% of federal buildings and land within 100 days. I guess, no, that's fantastic or not. But this next one, fast track shovel ready zone. So what the idea here is they're going to preemptively do all the homework for the builders. They're going to get the environmental assessments done. They're going to get all that work done, and they're going to have this done on land that's sectioned off for housing. So when a developer comes in, they don't have to go through all these hoops to get into it. So here's that story I want to tell you. There's a gentleman I was speaking to not too terribly long ago that owned two fourplexes in Whitby. So two fourplexes side by side. And there was enough room on the property to build two more. So this would have created 8 new homes in Whitby. It doesn't sound like a lot, but every little bit helps. It would have created 8 new homes in Whitby. He's about 3 years into getting the approvals and about $250,000 spent in just fees of environmental assessments and zoning and everything else. And he's just walking away from it. And that's the stuff that's stopping the housing supply on both sides. And I like how both platforms are talking about addressing that issue. And I really love this shovel ready zone. When I first saw this, I was like, okay, that actually makes a ton of sense. Harmonize the national building code. Sure, that's cool, I guess. Housing density required around transit funded by the federal government. So again, a cool idea. Although if you've ever been down to Toronto in the last, I don't know, 5-6 years, denser building areas do kind of suck. I don't even like catching the train anymore. I find there's way too much traffic. At one point, you used to have these great times to go down the 401 corridor, and now you don't. And that's because of creating more density in the areas. I prefer to have new building up in less dense areas, and let's build up the surrounding areas. But that's a preference. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer to that. I just hate traffic, apparently. And then they're going to eliminate confusing and gatekeeping language, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Removal requirement to report the sales as principal residence to the CRA. I don't really care about that a whole lot, other than I don't like the government tracking everything we spend. So cool. Scrap the underused housing tax, a tax that costs more. I honestly don't even know what that tax is. In Canada, we get taxed so much, it's crazy. So we're just whatever. And eliminate the new liberal home renovation tax. So I'd have to figure out what they're actually talking about there. In defense of the Liberals in this talking point, they also have had a lot of green efficiency programs that allow you to renovate your windows, your roofs, solar panels, heat pumps, and all the rest, and give money back. So I'd have to look into that. I don't know enough about it. I'm not big. I don't want to gloss over this. I'm not big in First Nation housing projects. It's not my area of expertise. So honestly, I'm not going to dive in and talk about it, but I would love to actually hear if anybody does work with First Nations and First Nation housing, about where some of these programs will hopefully make a difference. All I can tell you about First Nation is apparently we just keep promising things and nothing ever ends up happening. So I'll just leave that there and let the drama happen. Okay, so by the way, I do have a more in-depth one. I'm going to cut through with the Liberals again on this. So CMHC, they're going to cut the CHC operating expenses back. So CMHC is the fantastic program that allows you to put 5% down instead of 20% down on properties. 60 days approval. Yeah, I think that's kind of in existence now, so I don't understand that one. And then the removal of red tape for CMHC programs. Honestly, that's cool and all. I find CMHC is actually very flexible. I think the biggest problem with CMHC programs is they don't get out there. We don't talk about them enough. We don't, I can just leave it at that. We just don't talk about CMHC programs enough. Like, there's a few great ones. If you want to know a fantastic way to buy 5 or more investment properties with 5% down amortized over 50 years at a good interest rate that's not based off your income to debt ratios, call me. I have a fantastic CMHC program. And then again, for the homeless, they have a return to housing first approach, which to me is just fancy words. Build 6,000 homes for military families. I think that's fantastic. So in summary, reduce taxes, free up land, cut red tape, type funding. I didn't do the side-by-side comparison because what I did the first time with the Liberals, I let it go to the internet, which might have been a mistake. This time I actually uploaded the PDF. And so I'm not going to go through it all again because we talked about it all. We talked about the Crown Corp land. We talked about the $6 billion, the $25 billion investment, the $10 billion in affordable homes, $4 billion in underuse. Man, I wish I made this money. This would be great. Eliminating the GST. We talked about that. Expand the first-time home buyer incentives, larger shared equity mortgages available, making down payment easier. I'd be curious on what that looks like because I do think down payments is one of the roadblocks into homing right or housing rights. And then launch the Canadian renter bills, ban rent eviction, stabilize. Okay, so I do want to talk about this one a little bit because I'm gonna, depending on what crowd I'm talking to, I'm gonna change my tune. So two things can be true at the same time. One, renters need rights and they shouldn't just be able to be evicted like they're trying to make a home. And one of the problems with Canadian housing and rentals is once upon a time, if I were to buy a rental property for myself, it was about my retirement. It was about my long-term investments, protect myself. And then I rent it to a great family who may rent it for their whole lives if I'm lucky, and that'd be fantastic. But now a lot of investors are kind of more about instant and immediate profit. A lot of investors are more about the in and out. So like if your home goes up 200 grand, they're going to sell it on you. And then all of a sudden people get evicted. And so there's a larger underlying problem with investment properties and rentals when it comes to evictions. So on one hand, I want to be very clear. I think tenants need to be protected in all these regards for sure. But on the other hand, if what we are also seeing though is those ma and pa, those great landlords don't want to get into being a landlord anymore because the restrictions are so tight. And unfortunately, a few bad apples are ruining for a lot of great potential tenants. So there has to be some balance. And so when you get rid of the mom and pa, the investors I'm talking about who want it for long-term stability and financial gain in retirement, when you get rid of that crowd, you're just going to get crappier tenants, and you're going to get crappier landlords, like corporate landlords. So I'm very cautious on this one. I think right now tenants have a lot of rights, and I think it's very good. I think there's ways to expand it. But what I would rather see, instead of initiatives of making tenant rates larger than landlord rates, I'd love to see about how to get the mom and pa, those great landlords, back into the market so it's not so profitized every way. I don't even know if profitized is a word. Maybe I just made up a new word. That'd be awesome. Okay, municipal planning and regulatory reform. So this is what wasn't in the first one. This is why I wanted to go through this again. And again, I'm just so you guys know, I just went through the conservative plan. I'm now back on the liberal plan. So infrastructure for funding housing results. So again, they're working with the municipalities. The use it or lose it rule on vacant land, approved permits. Developers must use their land or risk penalties. I think both these are good. This will hopefully start the building projects. Standardized building codes. Again, standardize anything is great. Fast track approvals. I just want to see how they do that, but we need fast track approvals. I don't know how many times I've driven past an area where 3 years later, it's still in dug ground area. But this is horrible. And then pre-home designs. I think this is their prefab home concept, which again, there's been a lot of FUD about. I think it's a fantastic idea. We need smaller, more affordable housing. It'd be great. Community housing, supporting the homeless. Not really where I'm going to go in this whole thing, but there is, as you can see, the liberal plan is a little more comprehensive with 3 steps instead of 2. On what they want to do this. Incorporate accessibility into new all affordable homes, permanent rapid housing funds for the homeless. So I think there's some good ideas that go in there. And then the workforce and the construction workforce and everything else. I think both of those are great. Okay, so then I wanted to do just a direct, it asked me, hey, would you like to do a direct comparison between the platforms? And I said yes. So let's go through that real quick. So overall, conservatives build 2.3 million homes, double the year of construction of 500,000 homes a year. Construction approach, conservatives focus on the private sector by cutting red tape, taxes, and using federal land. Liberals have heavy government involvement through the new Crown Corporation and direct public involvement. So when you're looking at the differences, it's kind of like, who do you want to run this? Do you want developers or do you want government? And that's kind of a personal choice to a degree, but I do recommend do your research into previous government-run projects that eventually get sold to private corporations anyways. Eliminating HST is pretty much the same. The land supply, 50% of federal bonds. So they both want to use land. Honestly, we don't know what this number means, but I'm sure it's 15% or pretty close. Incentivize the cities. So both have targets for the cities. Eliminate GST on... Oh, this is interesting. Eliminate GST on new rental builds, but both of them have that, plus the Renter Plus program. Affordable and social housing. There's no new funding announced by the conservatives. $6 billion of deeply affordable housing, $10 billion for new non-for-profit co-op housing was announced by the liberals. Then we talked about the housing first projects for the homeless. Building approvals. Again, I love this shovel ready. Standardized building code, which is again fast track. I think both of those are fantastic. Workforce strategic, CMHC, cut CMHC budget back to 2015 levels. No CMHC adjustments. I'd be curious what the cutback actually means. Are they talking about just trimming waste on that? Because a lot of times I find CMHC runs out of funding, which is a different conversation for another day. But that definitely would bring into question some things. Lower home costs through GST cuts, but no direct buyer assistance for this is first-time home buyers, and expand the first-time home buyer incentive program. Again, this sounds really fun, but let's be fair. The first-time home buyer incentive program hasn't been used. I've never seen it used, the current one in place. It is a horrible program. If you have two people working minimum wage, like a husband and wife working minimum wage, they earn too much to make that program. So I think that program definitely needs to be revamped. Then direct infrastructure funding for Indigenous-led housing, expand Indigenous housing programs and projects. Okay, so quick analysis. Who builds? Now, private builders, faster, less tax and bureaucracy. Government builds with a lot directly through Crown Corp and private sector. So all I got to say about this is because of my line of work, I do believe that the builders should have the right to be able to do. They're the professionals in it. But I do think we need to have tax incentives. As I go back to my story earlier about the way they built only high-end semis and townhomes, we do need to have a different sort of incentive structure that if it sells below market value, like it should be based off of where it'll sell or predicted sale on a property. I definitely do think, though, that you have builders who have everything lined up. When you go to government projects, I don't know a government project that starts off at $1 million and doesn't end at $1 billion. Like it's so easy to inflate the cost and just cost so much more money. So this is the conversation when you're looking at who you're going to vote for. Are you going to in this election? Do you trust the people, the private builders, or do you trust the government to get it done? And that's really the decision that you're making off that part. The tone of it for conservatives are cut taxes, sell land, unleash the market. Liberals invest public money, regulate housing rates, and expand government housing roles. So again, do we want larger government or smaller government? Do we want more social or public service jobs or private service jobs? Like this is that conversation. Biggest strengths: rapid increase in supply, big boost to affordable housing. So one has a rapid increase in supply, which will create affordable. The other one has more affordable and supportive housing projects. So again, that's neither is really right or wrong, good or bad. Just you decide. Biggest criticism: could under deliver or on deeply affordable social housing, could create bureaucracy through delays. So let's talk about this criticism, and they're not wrong. So again, that townhouse semi example where they built like $1.2 million semi-detached homes and got incentives. This is what we want to avoid builders to do, and I think there needs to be a roadblock in there. But the conservative plan has a real potential of that happening, where the liberal plan, they're all about bureaucracy and delays and over costs. So I think we should take the criticisms more seriously and look at the past history. Both plans have big pros and both plans have big cons. So in short, conservatives led by a private built slash tax housing, blah, blah, massive public investment. And then I asked for a visual chart, which really wasn't that visual or great. Okay. So another link I'm going to send into this chat. So let me share this screen here. This is the last thing I'm going to tell you. So what I have developed for you guys, for the world, you can share this, is a chat where I just put in the two-party platforms and their PDF. So that's all it is. It's just the platforms. And I told ChatGPT to just analyze the data to answer from the platform. The platform is the source of truth. Now, the chat has the ability to go outside the platform to expand on ideas. But this chat will allow you to compare things side by side as we go into election day today. This will also be attached to part of the email and also on my Facebook page, my personal one, Nathan Graham. So check that one out. All right. This is a longer video than I really wanted to. And I know I went live in a few different areas. And I think it's because it's important. I just wanted this to reach out a bit more so people had a real understanding of what was happening this election cycle when it came to housing. I'm only talking about housing because that's what I know. And I see too many people right now on Facebook talking about what they don't know. They think they know, but they don't know. I'm not talking about the economy in this aspect, because I'm not an expert in the economy. I'm an expert in housing. I'm an expert in real estate. That is what I'm an expert at. I do think, regardless of what happens, just to talk about the market for a minute, I've talked about this in the last few videos, is there's a few things that have slowed down our real estate market here in Durham region, the Horseshoe area, Peterborough, Lindsay, Newmarket, everywhere. Okay, so when I say slow down, first of all, prices are getting more sticky. Overpricing a home by $10,000 or $20,000 can create a massive wait time for selling your property. Like they're not selling when they're overpriced. Yet when a home is priced appropriately or slightly lower, we're seeing 2 to 3 offers, maybe a little bit over asking. We're still seeing conditions, but they're selling in 7 days. So don't let overpricing convince you that this is a bad market that we're in right now. There are still a lot of buyers out. A part of the problem, though, is home prices were so high 3 years ago and they've come down and they've stabilized the last year and a bit. We've seen stable price adjustments. We've seen more seasonal data playing a role. We've seen everybody still waiting for the crash to happen, which watch my previous videos on that. But we're still seeing this stable market, this nice balance. I'd almost say it's a balanced market, this nice flood of buyers that are buying appropriately priced homes. This is why on your street, you're going to see one house sell within 7 days and another one still be on the market for 60 days. It's all pricing and determining value. Remember, your buyers determine the value of the property. It doesn't matter what you want. It's the market that determines it. So we're not in a bad market. If you're in a point where you need to buy and you need to sell, you are going to sell relatively quickly. And there's a lot of inventory out there to buy from. Unfortunately, one of the things that kind of ring true right now is the best deals are coming together when the seller thinks they've lost or they've sold for too little and the buyers think they paid too much. And that is kind of the social factor of what we are facing right now. But it's stable, and it has been stable for the last year and a half. A few contributing factors I think that'll cause our market to boom here. I say boom. I don't want to talk about like a 2017 or 2022 boom. I mean, just get more accelerated where we start to see a little bit stingy, less pricing. You start to see buyers pay a little bit more. Is number one, the tariff conversation has kind of finally died down. I think I'm the first person to talk about it in a week. So that's fantastic, unless you live in the States. So the tariff conversation has died down. Warm weather has definitely helped buyers get out and start looking at homes. And we have seen that impact happen. Lastly, though, the uncertainty with this election, regardless of whatever way this election goes, it's going to create 4 years of certainty of having somebody in power. The reality is, for the last year and a bit, we've just been waiting for an election to be called. And we had a prime minister that kind of checked out in the last 8 months to a year before this election heading. And so that will create a stability and a plan going forward. And I think that's what Canadians overall are looking for. So I do expect to see an active June for sure, May, June. I guess we're towards the end of April now. So I'm expecting to see an active May, June. July and August, we are going to have our seasonal downturn. People, especially this year, I think you're going to see a lot of people go to cottages, get away, stress relief. Like, it has been a high anxiety 8 months for a lot of Canadians. So we're going to see our market die down and then really pump up towards the end of August, September into October. And I think we're going to see some good growth happen there and then back into our November, December seasonal adjustments. Prime for the next spring. Coming up to the next spring market, we're going to see interest rates come down a bit more. We're going to see some of these development things start to play out. So I think we're expecting a bigger spring. I'm expecting a bigger spring next time around. So that's kind of gives you a headshot of the comparison. Please, if you're only catching this towards the end or the beginning of the video, whatever case may be, watch it. I just went through all the not all the platforms. I went through the conservative and the liberal platform because, quite frankly, no other platform is relative to who will get into power right now. So I went through the two platforms. I wanted to give you an unbiased opinion comparing the two, what I think is great, what I think is right? And then just talk about the market. So everybody have a good election day. And lastly, remember, a prime minister typically lasts 48 years, but your family is forever. So don't let this come between you, your family, and your friends. We're all people. Go have fun. Go vote or don't. You do you. Have a good day.